Welcome
Okay.
everyone to NJTESOL-NJBE's third literacy PLC this year. I'm very happy to welcome Jenna Maneri and Gloria Culmone, who are going to present today on building background knowledge and vocabulary to improve multilingual learner reading comprehension. Welcome and thank you, ladies. And go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. And thank you everyone who was here on time and started doing some of our chat waterfall. I'm Jenna Maneri. I am, I'm going to switch. Oh, let's see if I can do this. There we are. There's me and Gloria. I'm Jenna. I'm your NJTESOL NJBE elementary ESL representative, and I'm also an ESL coach in Bridgewater Raritan, and I work with every building, so K to 12. And Gloria?
Hi, everyone. I'm Gloria Culmone. I'm a K-5 ESL teacher in the Morris School District. I have been working with multilingual learners for 8 years. I am currently working on a master's for teaching for equity and justice, and I also serve as the NJTESOL NJBE Morris County chapter co-chair. Welcome, everyone.
And in case you missed it, this is the third in the PLC series for this school year. I believe it pretty much started last year with this focus on literacy and ML. So if you need to find any of the previous recordings, they're on the NJTESOL NJBE YouTube page. And then this session is also being recorded and should be up shortly. And we'll get started. So here we go.
Welcome, everyone, and especially if you're new to this PD series, here is where we are right now. So last year we focused on word recognition. The bottom half of Scarborough's reading rope, we worked on phonics, decoding, and sight words. This year we're focusing on language comprehension, the top half of the rope. Last session we covered reading fluency, which bridges word recognition and comprehension. Tonight, we're diving deeper into the comprehension strand. We'll continue exploring comprehension strategies in our February sessions. An important note, notice the yellow highlighting in the rope. That represents oral language development for multilingual learners. Yellow appears on every strand because MLs need oral language support integrated into all areas of reading instruction. That's our focus tonight.
Great. And so you'll see on this slide, we put a side-by-side like visual of Scarborough's reading rope and the SciUp model. They all emphasize the importance of background knowledge and vocabulary and comprehensible input to achieve oral language development and reading comprehension. So we wanted to kind of put them side by side and show how they're connected. If you see like SciUp component 2 is about building background, which directly maps to the upper strands of the reading rope. SciUp emphasizes connecting new concepts to the student's personal backgrounds. And in the reading rope, the background knowledge strand is critical for readers to make connections and construct meaning from text. And both frameworks prioritize vocabulary as a foundation. Science calls for a conscious, sustained effort in vocabulary instruction, which strengthens the vocabulary strand of the reading rope, making it a tightly wound part of skilled reading. So both Gloria and I are coming to you from like the ESL perspective, but we did want to kind of make a connection to how, literacy connects in the same way so that it doesn't seem too far apart from each other. Okay. Does anyone love Stephen Krashen as much as we do?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. Good. Because he's an oldie but a goodie, and this is like a screenshot from a lecture he did in the 80s, which the full length of this video is linked on the end of our PDF, which Kathleen Fernandez will share with you in the chat. And you can watch that whole video. It's about 15 minutes long, and Gloria and I highly recommend it. So he had some opinions that I think would still be considered by some as hot takes today, but they definitely hold true. And I think if we all have, some ESL background, we would agree. So he says, in my opinion, oh, it's cutting off for me. We all acquire language in the same way, which I feel like, for the time might have been a hot take. I just have to move something because I can't read the bottom of this. There we go. These days in education, we're living in an age of individual variation. We're very concerned about how our students are different, and I know that rang true to me. We hear a lot about how these students don't fit into this box, and they don't, learn the same way, or they don't come to us with the same skills. So I feel like we hear that a lot. And we don't hear a lot of how our students are all the same. There is individual variation, and there is quite a bit of it, but nevertheless, there are some things that we all do the same. So I really wanted to highlight that he was saying this, way back then and now we have all the research and everything that says they really do learn to read in the same way. And he was saying it also about language acquisition. So we're just going to scream this really loud, right? Structured literacy does apply to multilingual learners. So the science of reading does apply to multilingual learners. And just to kind of explain that a little further, kind of have this like light bulb moment that it's not that multilingual learners learn to read differently than their native English peers. It's that their foundational literacy, like in their home language, their first language, their educational background, and their experiences are different. They don't learn to read differently. They simply need differentiation. And before we get started, we just wanted to clear up and highlight any maybe misconceptions about prior knowledge and background knowledge, because oftentimes these two concepts are used interchangeably, but there really is a difference between them, and we wanted to point it out. So if you take a look at the left about prior knowledge, what it is, when it happens, and some examples, essentially prior knowledge is something that we can't count on our multilingual learners as having. So that's like their experiences and lived experiences and their knowledge that they received before coming into our classrooms, and just like life that they've lived already. Whereas background knowledge is a little bit different because it's teaching new concepts. So it's what's happening in your classroom when you're introducing things that you recognize that they need to learn in order to comprehend, in this case, like a text. So prior knowledge is what they had before they got into your classroom, and background knowledge is something you build in your class when as needed. Okay. So we wanted to share just a little bit about what the research says. The research tells us that knowledge plays an important role in becoming a proficient reader. So we're going to take a look at how this plays out in many classrooms. So in one study, it was found that background knowledge influences the speed of our cognitive processing and fluency while reading. So readers' speed and processing slowed as they searched for connections and meaning in the text. So we thought that was important to mention because, if they're coming to you and they don't have the prior knowledge, the background knowledge that you build in your classroom will help with their reading and fluency, which directly, I think, related to what we were talking about in PLC 2 with the prior presentation, and they focused on fluency.
Another study found that prior knowledge, it actually looked at oral reading errors in grade 4 readers with above and below average decoding skills when they either had or lacked prior knowledge of the passage topic. The study found that prior knowledge of the passage topic significantly increased reading fluency and reduced reading errors for less skilled readers.
And has anyone heard of the baseball study? If you have, maybe you could like put an emoji on the Zoom screen, but the baseball study is famous. It's referred to, I'm sorry, it was done by Recht and Leslie, which sought to compare reading comprehension for 4 different categories. And they looked at 7th and 8th grade students. And here are the 4 categories, and they're color coded for a reason. So we're going to get into that in a second. But the 4 categories were high reading ability and high knowledge of baseball. So that's highlighted in, we're going to call that yellow, even though it's kind of a weird color. The second category in green was high reading ability and low knowledge of baseball. The third category is low reading ability and high knowledge of baseball in blue. And finally, in red, low reading ability and low knowledge of baseball. And we would like you guys in the chat to think about which group do you think scored the best to the worst on the assessment. And you can rank them by color. So you can put them in order like yellow, like they are right now, yellow, green, blue, red, or however you think that they would rank as far as like who scored the best, which group scored the best, and which group scored the worst. I'll give you a second to kind of write that in the chat before we give you the results. Seeing some people say yellow as the best. Some people said green, high reading ability and low knowledge of baseball. Yellow. Seems like most people are agreeing that red would be the worst. Okay. What do you think, Gloria? Should we move on?
Yes.
Right. We'll put you out of your misery. Here are the results.
So as you can see, the students with low reading ability and high knowledge of baseball scored almost as well as the students who have high reading ability and high knowledge of baseball. And they outscored the student with the high reading ability but low knowledge of baseball. The poor readers, according to the standardized test, and also baseball experts had no trouble understanding the passage describing a baseball game and did better than good readers who knew little about baseball. Other studies have found similar findings. This study highlights the important role that building background knowledge plays in improving multilingual learners' reading comprehension.
We're gonna watch a quick video, but before we watch the video, I wonder if it's just gonna, okay. So before we start this, it's only about 2.5 minutes. I just wanted to point out that what Gloria and I did, in case you were not familiar with the baseball study already, and if it's a new idea or concept to you. So on the previous 2 slides, we shared about that. The slides were read to you, they were color coded, and there was even a graph. So now you have kind of been set up and given the background knowledge for success. Making it more likely for you to access it and comprehend what we're doing and what we're going to show you in this video instead of just starting with this video. So, and that's pretty much what you're going to do with your multilingual learners in class, right? So while we watch this short video, we would like you to share, maybe in the chat, you could write any keywords, any phrases, or any takeaways that resonate with you. And we'll get started. So feel free to write anything down, jot any notes in the chat that stick with you.
This idea that skills and strategies are more important than building kids' substantive knowledge in the elementary years. The assumption has been that this is the way to boost scores on reading tests. And so what you've got is a real marginalization of anything but reading and math from the curriculum. But if you look at what cognitive scientists know about how reading comprehension works, what's really crucial is how much relevant knowledge the reader has to the text. So it's not that You can never ask a student, what's the main idea of this passage? Or can you make an inference? It's a question of what's put in the foreground. There was a famous study called the baseball study, which took a bunch of 7th and 8th graders, and the idea was to see what is more important to reading comprehension. Is it general skill or is it knowledge of the topic? They divided these kids into 4 groups depending on how well they had done on a standardized reading comprehension test and how much they knew about baseball. They gave them a passage to read about baseball and tested their comprehension of that passage. And they discovered that what really made the difference was knowledge of baseball. And even the quote unquote poor readers who knew a lot about baseball scored significantly better than the quote unquote good readers who did not know about baseball. So knowledge is like Velcro. Kids who start out with more knowledge and vocabulary are in a better position to then absorb and retain even more knowledge and vocabulary because they have a context, they have that other half of the Velcro. And that enables them in turn to read more complex text. But the other kids are falling farther and farther behind every year. They're reading simpler text, and they're also less likely to be able to retain it because they don't have that other half of the Velcro. So what happens is that these gaps grow larger as time goes by. Kids get to high school and suddenly they're expected to read a textbook on world history, and they just don't have the background knowledge. And it's not that they can't learn those things. It's that they have never been taught those things in a way that's likely to stick. And it puts them at a tremendous disadvantage. So if you can start narrowing that gap earlier, if you start building knowledge in elementary school, you're going to get a lot more bang for your buck.
Okay. Just going to take a look at the chat. Here. Seeing someone write about their older kids love you thing. Schema. Okay, so building knowledge earlier, and you liked the hi Nicole. This is about Velcro, the Velcro analogy. Yeah, I liked that too. I see a couple people like the Velcro analogy. Narrow the gap earlier. Connections promote comprehension. Connect and retain better. Yeah. Another Velcro. Knowledge is like Velcro. So we really liked this short little clip. Anyone want to share out and come off mute and talk a little bit more about what they saw or what they heard?
I really like how the video highlighted that students need more than just vocab itself, like in isolation. They need context and explanation and collaboration to understand those concepts and to be able to contribute meaningfully and then make that gap disappear.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for sharing. It's definitely more than, yeah, exactly what you were saying. My biggest takeaway is that, we can't, in the very beginning, they had that really wonderful, I think, image with the scales, and they were like, we can't just focus solely on the skills and the strategies, which kind of reminds me of this PLC series. Like at first we were looking at Scarborough's reading rope and all of those foundational areas, and now we're getting more into the comprehension and the meaning, which is correlated to what we are actually, why are we reading? We're reading to understand. So to me, that's where the background knowledge obviously comes in more. And it's so important because why are we learning to read? We're reading to learn eventually, right? Okay. So Gloria is going to talk about a little bit of knowing how to build background knowledge.
Okay, so before instruction, before you ever hand students a text or teach new content, you need to activate what they already know and preview what's coming. You start by activating prior knowledge. This is where tools like a KWL chart comes in, which we'll see in detail in a moment. Quick writes, polls, even just asking, what do you know about whatever it is you're talking about, the topic. It gets the brain ready. Next, you preview the vocabulary and concepts. Don't wait until the kids hit unknown words in the text, you need to teach them up front before they do the reading. Then front load with visuals and multimodal texts. Show images, diagrams, maps, short video clips. Remember, many of the multilingual learners come from countries where they may not be exposed to what it is that they're learning. A 2-minute video of the topic you're learning can build schema that hours of verbal explanation can't. And critically, use students' home languages. Point out cognates in Spanish, allowing translanguaging where students can discuss concepts in their home language first. This validates their linguistic resources and actually strengthens English learning. First, chunk information. Don't overwhelm students with entire chapters. Break the content into manageable pieces. Use interactive read alouds. Don't just read straight through. Pause, ask questions, make predictions, connections. Ask what you think will happen next. Why do you think they did that? Does that remind you of anything you've learned so far? This keeps them actively engaged and not passively listening. Model your thinking through think alouds. This says, talk about information. For example, if it says a whale is 60 feet long, they're picturing how big the whale is. That's as long as our classroom times 2. You're showing them how proficient readers make meaning. Provide repeated exposure. Students don't learn vocabulary from concepts from one encounter. We practiced, I'm going to walk you through a lesson that I did, and you will see we practice the vocabulary daily for a few weeks. The repetition moves words from short-term memory to long-term. Also build in collaboration, partner talk, small group discussions. That's where language development happens. MLs need to use the words, not just hear them. Use text sets, multiple texts on the same topic at different levels. A picture book about whales, for example, student-friendly article, a primary source document, different entry points for different students, and create interactive anchor charts that grow throughout the unit. Students add to them. They refer back to them. They own them. It's not a teacher's chart. It's the collective knowledge building. Notice that all of these strategies share something in common. They make what's invisible visible. They externalize the thinking and connections, the background knowledge that proficient readers do automatically, but that our multilingual learners need to see modeled, scaffolded, and practiced explicitly.
And just to kind of also talk about like knowing when to build background knowledge, if you're having trouble determining like what might be essential knowledge that you need to give your multilingual learners, because I think we've probably all been there where we've gone down some rabbit holes and gotten very off track and maybe convinced ourselves that it was a teachable moment or something. But really, if you're planning in advance and you need some help with maybe a tool, there is a great article, which is linked at the end, from Color in Colorado about background knowledge. And they had these 2 images, which I thought was great. The first one's kind of like a table and the second one's a flow chart. So both of these resources are a great tool. If you're maybe new to incorporating background knowledge into your classroom, you can kind of go through the flow chart and help you, and maybe it can help you like stay on track a little bit and see what's needed and what's essential. So it's a really good, useful tool for that. And I'll just like read some of it to you. So the image on the left is kind of like the same thing on the right, but a little more descriptive. I liked the flow chart better. So if you start at the top, do non-ELLs or MLs have background knowledge on the topic? So if the answer is yes, then you're going to keep going. Obviously, if they already have knowledge on the background topic, then what are we doing here? We're not using this flow chart. So yes, they have knowledge on it, but does the background knowledge provide information in place of what the author is going to provide in the text? So if the background knowledge you're planning to introduce is going to replace what they're going to get from the text, and your answer is yes, then there's really no point in teaching that background knowledge. If the answer is no, it's not going to replace that's in the text, then you continue on down the flow chart. Is the background knowledge about big issues that will help students make sense of the text? And if the answer is no, then don't teach that background knowledge. But if the answer is yes, then it brings you to the final box, which says, is the background knowledge concise? If the answer is no, then don't teach that background knowledge. But if the answer is yes, then it sounds like you have some good resources that will help build background knowledge in your classroom. So it's just a very general flow chart of kind of like checking yourself to make sure it makes sense to teach this in order to help them reach a new concept or topic. And knowing when to build background knowledge. This is how I kind of integrate oral language into building background knowledge. So like we talked about on Scarborough's reading rope in the beginning, oral language development is very important. So this is the picture word inductive model. This is a template I use to use that strategy. The PWIM strategy incorporates speaking, listening, and writing mostly, more than reading. However, it's a great way to get your students engaging with a new topic and assessing what prior knowledge they're coming to you with. And if you see the little like graphic at the top, like activating prior knowledge and then going to building background knowledge. So this is a great first step in seeing what prior knowledge they're coming to you with already, and then determining what background knowledge you'll need to build as you move through your instruction. So here's like the template to begin with. The students would be asked, you know, what do you see? I'm not sure if you can tell what that picture is from. It's a little bit tricky because it's black and white too, but it's an earthquake. And I wanted to highlight these three words, which also might be too small, but it says garbage, debris, and rubble. And that'll come up again later. So just hang on to that in your mind.
So we're going to watch this video, Mary Ellen Vogt's video. She emphasizes a critical connection between background knowledge and vocabulary development. Students cannot fully understand new vocabulary without context that background knowledge provides. Let's watch.
Within the SIOP model, there are three features to the very important component of building background. The first feature has to do with teachers using and connecting background knowledge of the students in the classroom with the content that is being taught for a particular lesson. Now, sometimes teachers will ask me, well, is this the background before these English learners came to the United States, or are we talking about their background since they've come? And my answer is always yes. You try to connect with anything you can connect with in order for the students to say, oh, I get it. Yeah, I learned that, or I experienced it, or oh, I saw that once. So anytime that we can really connect explicitly to the students' background knowledge, the better off we're going to be.
Who can remember an element that would be in a fairy tale or a traditional tale? Joseph. Good, there are animals that are talking. Very good.
The second feature in the SIOP model within building background is that we make explicit links to past learning. Now you'll say, well, how is that background building? Well, if I'm beginning a second or third day in a unit, or if I'm teaching a new unit that connects with a previous unit already taught, I need to help students forge that connection. I may need to bring out a transparency that I used in a previous lesson. I may need to pull down the map and say, you remember that we've already talked about the explorers from Spain. Now we're going to start talking about English explorers, so that students can see that there is a connection to what I'm teaching today and what I've learned in the past.
Today, what you're going to be doing, you're going to read pages 98 to 101 in your social studies text. After you finish reading the text, you'll complete your graphic organizer for the words cash crop, tax, and rebelled.
Our third feature in building background is a very focused attention to key vocabulary and to the academic language of the lesson that we're teaching. If youngsters do not have the prerequisite vocabulary to learn about a content concept, I need to teach that vocabulary to them explicitly, not just once, but multiple times.
Okay, so the key points there where vocabulary instruction is most effective when tied to building background knowledge. Students need concrete experiences and context to make new words meaningful. Background knowledge activates prior learning and creates hooks for new vocabulary to stick. Teaching vocabulary in isolation is less effective than teaching it within a meaningful context. I'm going to take you through how I did it in my ESL classroom. How are we assessing the essential question content? The goal is to reach the essential question without going too far off topic, teaching only what is critical or essential. Building background. We assess whether students have the foundational knowledge needed to access content. This stage builds the background knowledge that leads them up to the core content. Scaffolding routines. We evaluate how students engage with established scaffolding routines. The routines help students establish ownership of their learning, and we set and maintain high expectations for them. Lesson question. We monitor progress on daily lesson objectives and directly connect to the essential question, keeping instruction focused and purposeful. And the essential question. We assess deep understanding of the critical content through work that demonstrates mastery of core concepts. All of these steps are intricate parts of getting final results. They are building blocks and scaffolding routines that get results every time. Assessment at each level ensures students are progressing systematically toward understanding what truly matters. Okay. So before we dive into vocabulary instruction, let me show you another foundation that makes everything else work. Jenna used her PWIM. You could also use a KWL chart. Assessing these things in the beginning of a lesson, unit, or topic will help guide your lesson planning and instruction to determine what essential background knowledge needs to be introduced. This is a simple tool for multilingual learners that is incredibly powerful. I always start my units with a KWL chart, especially with my English language learners. It is a way of assessing students' needs. Jenna also shared 2 tools from Colorín Colorado to help determine when background knowledge is needed. KWL charts organize thinking visually. It reduces cognitive load by filling in notes in the boxes and doing it as a group. You can use the K column to assess what prior knowledge students have first, so you can determine what they need. It informs my teaching and it gives me data from my actual students. It shows what background knowledge needs to be taught. Aside from activating prior knowledge, students are making connections. They see that their experiences matter, their background knowledge counts. This is culturally validating and it gives students a foundation to build on. So when I teach vocabulary, for example, the word harpoon, I can say, remember when Brandon asked what a harpoon is? Let's find out. It's instant significance, instant engagement. Scaffolds that make KWL work. I show visuals while we fill it out. Pictures of whales, boats, the ocean. I provide sentence frames. I know and I want to know. I do think, pair, share. Students talk to a partner before writing. This lowers anxiety and generates more ideas. I welcome home language. Students can speak in their first language. Then they can ask other students to translate for them. I also accept any form of response. They can draw something, use single word phrases, full sentences. This way, everybody gets to participate at every level. Cool. Okay, so the example I'll walk you through is a social studies lesson. So it's a grade 5 ESL social studies lesson, and the chapter is called A Changing Continent. The essential question of the chapter is a changing continent. What is the impact of people settling in a new place? So each chapter has 5 lessons, 5 or 6 lessons, depending on the chapter. And each one has different topics within the lesson. There's a question. Prior to this lesson, students already learned about Native Americans, European explorers, and the 13 colonies. Now we were focusing on the 3 regions of the 13 colonies, and we started with the New England region. Thank you. To begin, I analyze content. I read the unit question and read through the grade level text that's to be covered. I thought about what experiences would help students understand the topic and get them to a point where they can answer the lesson question. What vocabulary words are essential? I gauged what they know. The KWL chart gives me information on what they know about fishing, whales. I considered their background. The W revealed what they were curious about and where there were gaps. That gave me more direction on interests and where the main focus would be. So, vocabulary strategy. The purpose was to front load vocabulary to support comprehension throughout the unit of the 13 colonies northern region, with a focus on the whaling industry. It allows students to access the grade level content and demonstrate learning. Okay, so I'm going to go through a few things that I did and also the vocabulary daily practice. So what I did first is I have slides of all the images, and we go through them. I give a clear definition, and each word is color coded by the part of speech that it is, noun, verb, adjective. We also use TPR. Students created a movement or a gesture for each word. It's multi-sensory learning. It enhances comprehension, processing, and recall. It makes abstract concepts concrete through movement and engages body memory. The daily practice. It's a spiral approach that I use that builds from receptive to productive skills. So I review the words with images. Then they match the image to the word and definition. So in the beginning, you have both the word and the definition. I do this every day when they're finished with their work. As they finish, I have a few sets of the pictures with the words. So they're seeing them, they're practicing the gesture that they made up for each word. They match and define, and they're acting it out. For the daily practice, I also use a fly swatter game, charades, something I call the team challenge game, vocabulary matching, visual word wall. As we move along through the lesson, I take away the definition at some point, and they match the word to the pictures. And then different games we play. Some of them just have the images and no word at all. This approach works because it has front-loading, daily practice, multisensory input, scaffolded progression, and continuous vocabulary support. The engaging daily practice builds background and gives students access to the content so they could be successful. So I'm going to tell you about one of my favorite vocabulary games. It's called Team Challenge, and my students love it. It reviews the vocabulary we've been learning and gets students talking, competing, and using academic language. So this is how it works. I divide the class into 2 teams. Each team gets a piece of chart paper and markers. I set a timer for 3 minutes, and during that time, each team writes down as many vocabulary words, phrases, anything else they could think of that has to do with the lesson that they have learned already throughout the unit. They can write anything at all. It could be harpoon, blubber, northern colonies, whatever they remember. When time's up, we move to the challenge round. So the challenge is when they take turns back and forth. One team will pick a word from their list, and then they have to define it or explain what they learned about it. If they're successful, they get a point. They circle the word or the phrase. And then if they can't define it correctly, team 2 gets a chance to steal. If team 2 defines it correctly, they get a point and circle it on their paper. So here's the key. If both teams write the same word, only one team can get a score on it. Whoever gets the point circles it. The other team crosses it out. So now that word is off the list. So it works for, So Ultimately, whoever has the most circles on their paper has the most points, and they're the winners. So it works for multilingual learners because it's collaborative. Students work with teammates to remember words and craft definitions. It's repeated exposure. Students hear each word multiple times as team challenge, as they challenge each other. And it's low stakes because if you don't know one of the words, you just pick another one. You can choose whichever one you want. It shows me which words stuck and which ones they need more practice with. So if no one can define one of the words, then I know we need to review it again more. So if there's any other explanations for any other games you would want, you can certainly let me know, and I'm happy to explain whatever else. I also want to tell you too, I put the words up on the walls. You can see in the image with the vocabulary words, and that stays up throughout the whole lesson. And actually throughout the whole chapter, I keep a lot of words up, but the kids, even when they're playing their games, they try not to look at that. They really want to challenge themselves, but it's always there for them to remember, recall, see the words, see the spelling, and use them whenever they need to use them. So the next thing I'm going to show you is next slide. Okay, multisensory vocabulary and comprehension. So after front-loading the vocabulary, I continue building background through 2 hands-on activities. So first, the students made paper harpoons. They cut, folded, attached string, and practiced throwing. Now, harpoon wasn't just a definition, it was something they held and used. The vocabulary became concrete. Second, we measured whale versus boat size in the hallway. 30 feet for the boat and 60 feet for the whale. Students walked at their lengths, and their reaction was immediate. They were so excited to see it. They were surprised. I heard, wow, this whale is huge. The boat is so small. That emotional response is what makes the learning stick. These activities have hit multiple goals. They integrated math vocabulary, longer, shorter, difference. They also developed procedural language, cut, fold, first, next. They answered students' KWL questions. What is a harpoon? How big are whales? Was it dangerous? Most importantly, they created concrete experiences. Now, when the students read about the bravery of harpooners, they don't just decode words, they remember standing next to the 50-foot whale. They understand danger viscerally. This is comprehensive input through action. Students understand through doing, not just listening. Multimodality, seeing, hearing, doing, create deep learning. Transform abstract history into memorable experience, and that's what makes grade level comprehension possible for multilingual learners.
Okay, thanks, Gloria. I love your harpoon. I'm just kind of wondering why you didn't bring in a real harpoon, maybe just some realia. But in case you missed it, kind of what with her examples, which you had so many, which were great. I love that fly swatter game. Vocabulary is an integral part of building background and therefore an overall reading comprehension. So, from what you can see, that's a big part of what Gloria does to build background knowledge with her MLs. And, they're engaging with the vocabulary, and then therefore they can engage better with whatever text you're introducing. And we also just wanted to kind of mention this. It's kind of a callback to the PSYOP video with Mary Ellen Vogt earlier. She emphasized focused attention to teaching key vocabulary as a feature to build background. So we are definitely, you're definitely reinforcing that and showing us how that is meaningful. And I had some fun activities too to engage with vocabulary. So we just wanted to take some time to kind of show you some other great ways to get the students interacting. Because remember, we're also putting a lot of importance and emphasis on oral language development. And also, considering that we have different proficiency levels in the room and how can we get them to interact with each other. So the first one I'm going to put up here is a Freyer model template I created that has a lot of really good features on it. Number one, it's scaffolded because it has visuals, but it also has cognates if you happen to have Spanish speakers in there, kind of showing them what box and what you do in each box. when I've had students do this in the past, I have put them in groups, intentionally put maybe lower proficient with higher proficient students. There's definitely a way for everyone to participate and collaborate on this activity. Your lower proficient students can add the image, maybe put the synonym or the cognate or the translation, whatever you want to do with the top right box. Maybe even copy the definition from a dictionary. And your more proficient students might be able to give you the example, give you the sentence, give you the context that the vocabulary word is used in. And just to take it a step further, I know Gloria mentioned how when she does her matching vocabulary games, it ends up going up like on the wall and becomes a visual word wall. This is another activity you could do that ends up on the wall and becomes their visual word wall as well, for them to reference back to and use their classroom as a resource. Another fun vocabulary thing you could do is a choice board. If you're a fan of choice boards, maybe by the end of the week, they have to get so many points and they get to pick and choose. And there's different activities on here that can probably appeal to the different levels of students you have in your classrooms. Like, are they talking to other students? Are they drawing a picture? Are they finding a friend and acting out 5 vocabulary words? So there's a little something for everyone on here. This is one of my favorite things to do, and I wish I had one with me, but I don't. I love to do like a shades of meaning, or the fancy word, a lexical array. And this is my callback to the PWIM, the picture word inductive model I had up earlier with the earthquake, where when students were giving me some of the words that they knew with that picture, we got garbage, we got debris, and we got rubble. So on the PWIM, if you remember, I put them next to each other. So it kind of grouped them together since they're related. But another thing you can do is maybe get these paint chips, borrow them from a Home Depot or a Lowe's, and you can hang them up throughout the room just to kind of build on some vocabulary. Instead of always saying garbage or trash, like maybe we're going to say rubble or waste or something different, just to mix it up and build on vocabulary. And they're colorful and pretty, and who doesn't want them hanging in their room? Another fun activity is a Kagan cooperative learning structure, which is really good for building vocabulary, but also Kagan, if you're familiar with those cooperative learning structures, they're really good for students to interact with each other. So this is a springtime unit we were doing in elementary school, and we were talking about parts of a plant, and the students had the vocabulary cards. Each student had a mat with the picture that you see on the left, and partner B would ask partner A questions, and partner A would have a few of the words on their mat, and they wouldn't be able to see each other's mat. It's called Match Mine. And partner B would have to keep talking and asking and practicing these sentence structures, and having this structured discourse. So very good for like newcomers, level 1s and 2s, just to kind of get like that discourse down until they got all the correct vocabulary words, partner B, and then they would lift up the privacy folder and see if their 2 mats matched. And that's why it's called Match Mine. And I was just doing this with some kids earlier this week and last week. And, I've done it with 1st graders and I've done it with 3rd graders, but I've also done it with like 7th graders, and they all seem to still really enjoy this kind of game. And then they love to switch and, I'll be partner A this time, you be partner B too. So that is Match Mine. Another game that I forgot I used to do, and now I think I have to bring it back into the rotation, is called like Vocabulary Carousel. And this was just one example, but maybe I'll kind of talk like using like Gloria's whaling example, with if you had all of those vocabulary words, one like the card at the top that says mass with the picture and the part of speech. So maybe you have like, her whaling, her harpoon, her blubber, and they're all spread out throughout the room, and kids are in groups or teams, and they speak to each other using the speaking stems on the bottom, where they look at the picture. They write the word on their organizer and they talk to each other using these stems, like I think the word is, or I know the correct vocabulary word is, I know sorry, I agree with so-and-so because I, respectfully disagree. So they're kind of coming up with what they think it means next to where it says word in the left column. And they're doing that collaboratively. And then the carousel part is that they move from one table to the next. Maybe there's a timer set. Maybe we're playing music, kind of like musical chairs. Maybe it's like classic carousel music. And they're moving from one word to the other and working together. Here's that fly swatter activity. Maybe everyone's familiar with this. It's a team game, 2 teams. Teacher can read the definition. The teacher could even read a synonym. The teacher could, you can kind of be flexible with it. But after they've kind of started to become comfortable with their new vocabulary words for whatever topic or unit that you're doing, each team lines up in 2 lines facing this chart or the board, wherever you have these words written, and the first person in line, each one has a fly swatter. The teacher would read maybe the definition, and the first person on each team would have an opportunity to swat the correct word, and whoever gets it first, their team gets the point. In case you were not familiar, this is a lot of fun. Get out some aggression too with the fly swatter. And one of the last things I put together recently, I did this with some teachers. If you can see some of the words in the box at the bottom, I did this at like an in-service day, so it was meant to be a little funny. It was an escape room activity, but focused on like a closed reading kind of activity where they're practicing vocabulary. So, you'll have to use your imagination and apply it to maybe your unit's vocabulary. And at the end of it all, once they filled in the spacing in the blanks for the reading that they had with their teams, they had to unscramble the words. Is anyone dying to know what the passcode was? The passcode was retire, which I thought was kind of fun for our teachers. Okay, and we're going to kind of start wrapping it up. We wanted to bring it back to our guy. Our guy, of course, is Stephen Krashen. Here he is talking again. We acquire language in one way and only one way, and it's when we get comprehensible input. All of this building background knowledge, all of these scaffolded activities that we've talked about, they're all part of his comprehensible input theory. It's all related to the SIOP model, component 2. It's all related to Hollis's, Scarborough's reading rope. So we just wanted to make those connections for everyone. And I think we're going to kind of leave you with this final note. Just a final thought, a final reminder. The comprehension strategies endorsed by the National Reading Panel all rely on activating prior knowledge, which means they only work if a reader has enough background knowledge to understand the text in the first place. And it's our job as educators to build background knowledge and fill in the gaps. So we just wanted to kind of reiterate that one final time. And we have about a few minutes left, so we just wanted to ask if there are any questions.
Thank you so much, ladies.
Feel free to come off mute. Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you so much, ladies. If you do have any questions, please unmute yourself and you can ask them now. I am going to put 2 things in the chat. The link to the survey and PD certificate. Please make sure that you type your email address in correctly so that you receive your PD certificate. And then also you should be able to download a PDF of the slides.
If you like any of those vocabulary activities, they're all linked on the final page. So you will have access to them and some of the templates that we shared too. Oh, Tom McKinley took lots of notes. Love that for you.
I also put in the chat our next PLC, which is coming up soon on February 4th. If you would like to attend that, the Eventbrite link is there. It's also on the hot list, and it will be in Weekly Voices this week coming up.
I saw, is it Kelly Yang, the writer, Kathy?
No.
Oh, I got super excited.
I know.
I'm still excited, I swear.
I know, because I looked up to see where she taught, and that's what I came up, and I said, I don't think it's the same person.
Well, because wait, I'm gonna mess up her name. Because of the Winn-Dixie. No, it's not Kelly Yang. It's Camillo, right? Something
Yes.
Camillo. So Kelly Yang, the writer, Kelly Yang, and whatever her name is, Camillo. I'm sorry, I can't remember. They just started a podcast like this week, and it's for kids to listen to, like, and kind of get kids engaged in like being like more into reading and writing.
I saw that.
Yeah, and I was like, that's so cool. And then Kelly Hank's coming to our next PLC. Apparently not.
Okay, I see Tatiana has her hand raised. Go ahead,
Yes,
Tatiana.
thank you. Hello, ladies. Thank you so much for your presentation, taking notes. And yes, I met Krashen once when I used to be a board member at Plunge. He presented and I got to sit with him. He's really cool, total rock star. Yes. And I have the pictures to prove it. Now, my question is,
oh my gosh.
I'm curious if you push in or pull out for ESL.
So I mostly I do both, but sometimes when I push in, it's the bilingual classes. So I'm really working with everybody anyway. I have pushed into other classes, and what I do is I'll teach the whole group, and then I take my students in a small group to work with them and do some scaffolding and some different things. But I will say it's certainly, if you can, I think pulling them out works better. Yeah, but sometimes, we have to push in.
Yeah. Thank you. I push in, and for the better part of my ESL career, I pulled out and I was like on an island by myself, and it worked. And then in my new district, I do push in, and I'm just like figuring out how to dance, figuring out how to reach all the students. I have 26 students that I push into the bilingual classroom, and then we're like racing against the pacing guide. So like you have to teach what's approved in the district. You can't really bring out new things. It has to be approved to be used. So it's challenging sometimes. But yeah, I do miss that liberty to pull out. But I also am seeking the opportunities to do the same, to implement some of the things that you presented here into that small group setting, because we do have station work that we can dedicate 20 minutes to in our block. But it is challenging.
Yeah, I think a lot of the vocabulary activities we talked about in Gloria's too, like could be in those, like you said, those stations too.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you everyone for coming. Can you guys still see the screen? I think our contact info is on there. If you think of something later on, or
Yeah, and it's on the
say hello.
Yeah, too.
Oh, great. Yeah.
Does anybody?
Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. Does anybody know of any resources available for SLIFE kids? I've a group of them who they can't remember the last time they went to school. They don't know the alphabet in Spanish, and we're really struggling to reach them. Any suggestions I would greatly appreciate.
I have the same situation. I actually was about to say the same thing. My students are indigenous. They are on their third language. They don't have literacy in their first or second or third language, and they don't come from a literacy world. So, but they are identified as Hispanic because that's what we've identified them as, even though they're not. This is like a really, I don't want to say vulnerable because it sounds like they're weak, but they're not. They're very powerful. They speak three languages. But I definitely, I struggle with this, and I've been teaching for many, many years with multilingual learners. But for me, what has worked in the last few weeks has been starting from storytelling, because in their world, storytelling and communicating that's what they value. That's what makes sense to them. So I take stories that they're familiar with and I recreate them in whatever way, with clay, with drawings or everything. And from there, we start pulling vocabulary slowly. Then we start the writing with that vocabulary. We do math from that story as well. So we're always connecting back to that one story. So I think over the last 2 years, that's what's given me the most impact, starting from what they are feel grounded because they don't have literacy, but they do have that storytelling, that communication, that oral literacy that they have. It's what you have to start with what you have, right? What they are able to hold on to.
Oh, that's fabulous. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I was going to say I did something similar in that I had several books that were almost like comic books, just like line drawings, but a very brief story right next to each picture. And then I would, make copies for the students to write the words on the images so that they would make those connections. And then again, I think it's so important to have them actually write something using that vocabulary, bring everything in, talking about it, speaking about it, obviously. And that really, it makes it concrete, but also meaningful to them because it is a story. So, it just takes time, really takes time.
Another thing I did that was really helpful and a lot of fun for them is I took the story that we were reading and I used AI to create a jazz chant because I want them to feel the cadence of the English language in very simple, relatable words. So taking the book that they've been working on for a week, turning it into like a simple two stanza kind of a jazz chant, practicing with them that was really amazing because they were, even though they're not 100% understanding, they were able to remember the jazz chant and say it and practice that cadence in English. So that was another great thing that you can do with AI.
Oh, very creative. Thank you.
And someone put a Padlet in the chat, Miss Klein, thank you, which I assuming also has supports for SLIFE students.
Yes, I just wanted to mention Dr. Nagrin was my former supervisor, and she really brought Carol Salva to our district. And really, we did a lot of her training and had her book. And it's really focused on SLIFE students, and the strategies are great for everyone. But I really recommend checking out the Padlet because it has tons of resources and like practical things you can just use right away.
Great. I just emailed it to myself so I don't lose it.
I'm just curious, one thing is anyone else out there seeing Indigenous students in their school districts?
For a while now, I've had a lot of kids coming from like Guatemala who speak like Quiche, and it's hard to find any resources, right, in their first language or even finding a translator. It's becoming more and more common.
Oh, is it okay if I reach out to you and just yes, Ms. Maneri, Jenna.
I don't know if Jenna, please. I don't know like how much I did have a student like last year, I think, and we found some good stuff for that language specifically, but not a lot. But yeah, absolutely reach out to me.
Thank you.
And someone in the chat, Pilar, wrote that the PWIM is really good for SLIFEs. It's good for everyone. ESL practices are best practices, in my opinion, for every student. So I have done this a lot, that template with Jenna teachers too. And by the time you get to the bottom and you're writing sentences, like, a level 1 might be just writing there is or I see. But then, your level 4s could be writing more complex sentences. And I put examples in there of what students had written, and some of the gen ed teachers were like, my gen ed students wouldn't write this beautifully. So it's a really good way to like build that language up and get them to give more details in sentences. So it's good for everyone, but yeah, absolutely good for SLIFEs, newcomers, level 4s, level 6s, native speakers, whatever. I know we've gone over our time. It's really nice hearing you guys talk to each other, though, Kathy. We might need to have like a session, an open session where people can just chit chat.
Well,
and like
actually,
learn from each other.
I was going to say that's one of the things that the local chapters can do. So, we have chapters in Bergen and Passaic that are very active in Burlington County. There's a chapter in Mercer and Morris. Gloria is working with that. But those chapters actually can give you the opportunity to meet in person and actually see somebody and talk at length. It's great to have Zoom, but it's also really wonderful to see people. All right, if there's no more questions, thank you again, Gloria and Jenna, for a very informative presentation today. It will be going up on our YouTube channel, probably the beginning of next week, because we have quite a few things going at NJTESOL-NJBE this week. But I thank you again, and I thank everyone who's participated. Have a great night.
Thank you. This was wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Oh, Jenna, I'm sorry. Hi.
Where's Theo? I muted you before.
Oh my goodness. I totally forgot.